Welcome to Ike Comics Draw Process. I'm Ike. In this series, I draw comic books. So far, it's been First Sun and Sword. We're on episode 2, page 35. Today, the page will have inductive storytelling and an interesting panel composition. I'm going to use a background element to inform the design of the panels for the page. As always, I'll share my techniques and process about my development in a way that hopefully helps you do the same. So let's get into it. There's this interesting thing I notice. I think I've mentioned it briefly in prior videos. I can't help it. When we're 95 episodes in, I repeat myself. But it seems like whenever I get sick of myself, just kind of almost like burnt out, but just like not sure if what I'm doing is good, how much longer I can keep doing it. I'm just kind of burned out. Whenever I get to that place, I tend to have a breakthrough. Now, part of that is I don't quit. I mean, as long as you keep going, there is an opportunity for growth, but I don't know that would happen if I quit. But I keep producing at least a page a week. And my style ends up changing because it tries to relax. It's almost like my perfectionism relaxes, or there's a part of me that is sick of trying hard. And that part needs to give up. It does need to give up. It's not me giving up, me, myself, in a way. It's a part of me giving up the fight for whatever it's trying to achieve. Because that part has an idea of what my art should look like and what is good. And it's pushing for it in a way that is going against the grain of my self, of my creative, curious, playful self. When I'm in that creative, playful place, my art is better. I think the comic, especially because this type of art it's storytelling. It's communicating story. I like it when it's more playful, when it's coming from that place in me. It tends to be more expressive in that place as well. And so when I reach the end of my energies, and then I have to let go, that part of me has to let go of the reins a bit, and I get to just do it. And that's what's been happening, really, when I've been changing things up lately, and it's getting rougher. There's a lot more lines on the page, but it's also a lot more expressive. I like how it looks. I like the result, but it comes from a place where I reached the end of my strength. And that has happened again and again to me. And that's just interesting, and maybe something useful for you. I don't know if you've experienced that, but there's hope in failure, let's say. When you reach the end of your energy, when you feel kind of burnt out or hopeless or something, or questioning your abilities, some people will encourage you, tell you that you should confront those false beliefs. You should believe in yourself more. You should just strengthen your vitality, your ego, like just push through it, believe in yourself more, just do it. In a way, they're telling you, don't listen to that part of you. Don't see where it's coming from. Don't let go of the reins. Don't let that part of you let go of the reins, because, well, what's on the other side? Well, something bad. If it's got a bad emotion with it, it's bad. But that's not true. It's an opportunity to grow. You're going to experience some hardship and some hard emotions or whatever, but you're going to be able to become more whole and get into that, more creative self. When you feel that you are out of creative energy, that's not the real you. Like, you're not in touch with real you, is how I see it. There is no end to creative energy. It's limitless. You're just not in touch with yourself. And, that's tough when we're grinding out art in our downtime while holding down a job and having kids or whatever we're doing. And, burning the midnight oil, getting up early, drinking lots of coffee. We're not in touch with ourselves very well when we're in that place. And we all have to make a choice of, how much pushing and grinding out we're going to do. But I would advise you to take care of yourself, to not overdo that. Like, you've got to check in with your body and check in with yourself and make sure that you're in a creative place, in touch with that. Because it's going to make better work. You're going to grow and become better. It might depend on what you're going after, but a really detailed approach. I don't know what else to say. A really detailed approach to pages with a really refined approach. There might be a case to be made to say, I'm going to really grind this out. I'm going to spend lots of hours on perfecting this look I'm going for this one page. And, and that's important to me. There's a place for that. But I think you gotta stay in touch with this too. It depends on what you're after, what you value, but I value the growth of the individual and the expression of an individual through their art. So I got to be in touch with that. So despite this trying time I'm in, it's been useful. And I've embraced it. And yeah, it's been kind of tough though. My head's not in the game as much. But I keep sitting down, I keep putting in the work, and I find a way to do it from a creative place, from a calm place. And once a week, one page a week. This is you'll see I'm constructing this kind of different panel shape, page design. There's this circle of stones, this kind of courtyard, or like in the center of the street with the well in the middle. That circle shape, that curve, is the panel border here. And I put a curve above it. Now, I could have matched that curve like exactly, but something about this relationship of the curves not matching, I liked. But there's a curve to the panels above, and in those 4 panels there, I'm going to have soldiers, different close-up shots of soldiers running towards them. And then in this large gutter, because this above this circle of stone ground here is just white background. It's all gutter. But I'm going to have the characters, the soldiers, running across the gutter. So they're going to go from the curved 4 panels above where you see them running, they're going to literally kind of run across the page, across the gutter to the panel below. And yeah, it was just an idea. It felt fun, and it works, I think. It was the curve here. It's the figure's running from the bottom of this curve to the panel at the bottom. By following that circle, it kind of like encloses, it like cuts into these panels and gives a space where you see the characters running across. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just feels right, the shape and that dead space there. And the panel at the top is a very long, horizontal panel with the figures looking at each other, kind of balanced across that, but it's full width of the page, and then everything beneath it, that helps this section. These 4 panels with the panel at the bottom, they feel like a unit because the panel above is the full width of the page. It's kind of popped out or broken out from what's down here. And because the dynamics of it, the sort of flow of that top panel is very flat, very horizontal block, no directionality. It's not aiming. There's no sense of diagonals pointing anywhere. It creates just a heavy block on top that's kind of static. And that way, everything down here has this. This is where the dynamics and energy are in play. So the feet and the soldiers, like spear and arm and their heads, and the top-down view. There's these different views here in these 4 panels. They seem to have like downward energy. Each of them is like on a vertical line. The feet are moving from top to bottom, not much of a diagonal to it. Same with the figure and everything. So these feel like they're pulling down. And then because the stonework on the bottom panel radiates from the center of the well, it feels like you have an upside down triangle. From these panels that follow this curve, they pull in towards that well. So that there's like a real focal point of this section of the page. Unfortunately, my main characters are not right there at the focal point, but they're very easily seen silhouetted against the stone floor next to the well. And they're not too far off center. They're on a third, which is decent. Yeah, so there's some nice like way that things fit together here. And it was just fun. It's just fun to do. Why not? I don't know, like, if I want to do this kind of thing a lot more often or not, because I don't like to mess around like this, like, without a good reason. Like, it needs to feel right for the story. So, like, in this case, you've got 4 panels of soldiers running, and then it all directs you to the soldiers running up to the characters. Like, it tells a story visually between the panels. So there's a reason for this, kind of more wild composition. So, yeah, I don't know if I'll do it like all the time. I think it's great. I mean, maybe it would be good to do it more often, and I could just design panels and pages better. I don't know. But like I'm saying, I don't want to do it arbitrarily. One reason I think that's the case is When I see pages that have interesting designs, they tend to include montage elements, like lots of snapshots, these sort of like inductive storytelling, like little pieces of information that when you put them together, you see what the big story is. I feel like that's true. Like if I think of cool pages I've seen that people are like, wow, this is such a cool, composition, the way you laid out these panels and told the story among these visual elements, it's because there's visual elements. Like there's a lot of little elements to telling the story. But that is not always the best way to tell a story, is with inductive or with montage or lots of little pieces. Sometimes it's better told kind of cinematically, like a character on a background moving, doing things, showing the whole scene and kind of moving through the scene. Some of that it's less inductive. So to do interesting panel designs all the time might have someone doing a lot of these little inductive panels. And if you do a lot of that, it affects the storytelling. The style of storytelling becomes very piecemeal, very broken up. And that isn't necessarily what you want for a story. It's not necessarily as immersive. And so, I lean towards more cinematic style of storytelling, and some of that's my film background, but I enjoy manga sometimes more than American comics because of that more cinematic style, and that's in my DNA. That's something I lean towards, I like. So like I'm saying, I don't know how often I'm going to do these kind of interesting designs, panel layouts. And here in the inking, these really large, these really long lines I have to do end up a little wobbly because I don't rotate my paper. If I rotated my paper around, I could make sure that I'm always dragging my pen in the most ergonomic, way. Maybe drawing from northwest to southeast, kind of a diagonal or across or down. There's a certain angle you're going to be more comfortable with. And you can rotate the page around to always get that straight line, or you can use a ruler, a straight edge, and help you get a straight line. I choose not to do that. And it results in somewhat wobbly lines. And I don't mind that, like, as long as it's consistent, as long as the style is consistent throughout. So these lines can be a little broken up, a little wobbly, disjointed a bit, but that quality is maintained throughout the entire page, throughout the entire book. And it gives things an organic feel. It's a little bit less concrete, rigid, on a grid, and a little bit more expressive. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's what feels more creative and like coming from that good place in me. I've started doing these hatching lines, these lines that would convey shadow or gradient. This helps create depth. So in the past, I used to use solid blacks, solid whites, and you'd have to be really careful how you design the page. For example, this building, the gap in these two buildings next above Sword's Head. If I did solid blacks and whites and I wanted to separate, create depth here, if I put black there, you would just have this block of black, and it would hit Sword's head. And to help him pop off this background, I would probably put more solid blacks on him. But then that black gap between the buildings there would kind of look like it's on the same visual plane as him. It would kind of bring it forward, kind of group it with him. So one of the ways, and it might create, like a tangent or something, kind of hit his face in weird ways. One of the ways that I managed that was with tapered edges. So I would do a solid chunk of black, but sometimes I would create sort of a zigzag or tapered edge to it where it sort of transitions to white. It fades away before it hits his head, a little bit arbitrarily, but that was one solution. But again, more careful, I would have to do more careful layouts, designs of the backgrounds and stuff to allow for shadows that can be solid black that create depth. And that becomes difficult the more visual layers you have. So it's really easy if it's just one character on a one back, a flat wall or something. But as this comic has moved into these bigger and bigger environments, like city environments, and a lot more complicated stuff going on, lots of background figures and everything, it's easier to design and communicate clearly if I have finer lines, I have more expressive lines, I let my lines break more, kind of open up. Like you'll see on these buildings, you don't see the bottom of the buildings in the background. And when I have more gradations of value from light to dark, instead of simply white and black, I now have lines of, cross-hatching. So I can get more variation. So I'm doing more of that here. What's lacking at this point in the inking is the solid blacks. So after I do all of this, I will come back with a brush pen and fill in some solid black areas, moving around in the panel, trying to make it balanced, make it feel, and it really will help things pop when I throw in the blacks. But when I'm doing it, it's not like before where it's purely solid areas of black. It's making new lines that kind of blend in or mix in with the lines I already have here. And here's an example too, even just a close up on a leg. If I didn't put these crosshatch lines on the leg to indicate form, value, separate it from the background, those lines on the calf and on the shin and knee, that helps it have form. It's going to be more clear what that object is, especially when it's not, it's just a little piece of a leg. It's not attached to a whole person. I need people to know what these things are, and I want to create depth and separate foreground and background and stuff. So I'm able to do that there in a way that would be very difficult to do with solid blacks. With solid blacks, I would have to do some much more careful and extreme lighting. Things would probably end up with a much more of a feel of a single light source that I need to move around, like the figures, like in three-dimensional space. The light source, let's say, if the sun is on their left shoulder, I'm going to have to move the sun all around to make sure that they're lit in a way that helps the composition, that helps me, navigate it using solid blacks. But it's also unrealistic. I mean, for moving the light source around is unrealistic, but the lighting's not going to be a harsh single light source with no ambient lighting or secondary lighting sources. And it's not going to be so harsh. The shadows are going to be lit by secondary lighting in a way that's not as harsh. Think of Mike Mignola, his where he really like shines is interior spaces where there's going to be a lot of shadow and a lot of shadows to play with from different, windows and everything, different shapes that he can throw in. That gets hard to do when you're outside, and it gets less realistic looking for the lighting to be so harsh during the daytime, especially. But I mean, it's the same for night. So getting more freedom of expression in my work has meant doodling. It's meant drawing freely and creating whatever I need in that moment to separate elements. A much more free range of tools available to me in the moment to make things work. Now, obviously, there's like a risk in that. If you're newer at making comics and you give yourself unlimited reign of, you can use anything at your disposal for free expression, then you might not be as masterful in the application of those tools, and it might be harder to learn. It might be nice to put some training wheels on yourself to discipline yourself with some limitations, which I've done for years and years before I started doing this. So I think there's a place for that, for disciplining yourself with limitations on what you're doing. And even here, what I'm doing, there's limitations. It's still only black and white, and I still only use, certain tools in a certain order. Yeah. This the stone ground in a circle here with the well, it is challenging. And I thought twice about it. I thought, the well could be a square. The ground could be a square. Why am I doing a circle? Isn't this going to be a pain? Because I'm going to have to draw this entire fight scene. And it's going to be warped because it's just a lot harder to draw in perspective. So this is not a flat plane. This is at an angle. So, and it's actually in 2-point perspective, at least, because things are kind of getting larger as they move towards the camera, move up vertically. So, to do that in a circle is like challenging, and I freehand it. I'm just doing this freehand. So it's going to be a little warped and a little loose. So I could either take the time to make sure everything's just right, or I could lean in to the messiness and lean into freehand drawing, communicating the story through freehand drawing. And then the little messiness is acceptable to many readers, to many people. It'll be acceptable because it still is good communication. And again, if I reached a point like this moment and I found it challenging to do freehand, so I hesitated and I decided I'm just going to do a perfect rigid picture here. I'm going to make sure it's perfect. If I did that, it wouldn't fit in with the rest of the book. It wouldn't blend, so it would actually pull the reader out of the story. So I went for it, and I tried not to be too careful so that it's similar to what I've done on other pages. And that's risky because, it's like, it's not perfect. So Hopefully it blends. Hopefully it's not too imperfect. I'm taking a risk. There's a lot of time, there's maybe 3 hours put in on the page, but I don't want to have to redo that. So there's a little risk involved, but you get used to it because everything I'm doing is completely risky. Like, you just get used to that. You'll see that there's more blacks, there's more solid blacks on the foreground figures, but also they have light areas too. So things that are closer to your eye have higher contrast. So this is partly just to separate these elements. If they have a lot of black in them, the background will have less, and vice versa. But it's also based on natural observation. There's greater contrast when things are closer to you. So that means more black areas and more light areas and more in between. So they have more, lines on them, cross-hatching lines, more solid blacks. And it helps them really pop off the background. Here, their shadows are left open as open lines. They're just they're creating energy and a little bit of depth, and not trying to be too realistic. They're used a little bit like speed lines. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with, like I was saying earlier, kind of the topic of today. I'm pretty happy with where things are going with the art style, the freedom I'm feeling, and I'm going to keep going down this path. I feel curious about what it'll be, and I like where it's going. Yeah, and I never would have thought I would end up here doing things that look like this when I started, or even 2 years ago. I would have been surprised. Yeah, it's good to grow and play. I got a water pen, like for ink wash, so it's diluted ink, and a brush pen that's refillable. I've done some other ink wash, but I had a hard time maintaining the same kind of just keeping the ink and water mix just right. But by having it locked into that pen, it's not going to dry out and stuff, and it'll be a little more consistent at all times instead of it varying as I dip my brush in it again. So, and it'll be something I can travel with. I'm going to Memphis Comic Expo. I think that's the end of October. Only convention I'm doing for the rest of the year. I'm pretty sure it'll be the only one. It's a good one. So yeah, having that I can travel with will be good. The Pin Click is a art show at Clever Kaiju on our YouTube, and I'll be on some of those episodes. I'm really looking forward to one coming up. I believe it's in the fall, I believe, but we're going to do an episode after Frazetta is the name of the episode, the challenge. So we're going to draw a piece from admiring Frazetta and adapting what we can be inspired by in him. So that's going to be really fun to do. I don't know what I'll draw yet, but it'll be fun to see what I come up with. So I've got several other art pieces. I'll stop there, but there's other things going on too, where I'm going to get to play with some other approaches and stuff over the coming season. And here is the finished page. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of it that you can kind of chew on and think about for your own development. and I will see you next week.